yourself to fall in love.
Hello everyone. So this video was supposed to come out 2 days ago on February 7th, but I was having issues with my editing software, so I couldn't finish it on time, but here it is now. Also, there was extremely limited footage available of the two figures relating to this video, so I'll have to use more still images than usual. Thank you all ahead of time for your understanding. So, February 7th was a very important day for hip-hop. On this day, 50 years ago in 1974, two of hip-hop's greatest producers would be brought into this world and begin their journey to becoming the legends that they are today. That is to say, I wanted to wish a very happy birthday to two of the culture's most revered figures, James DeWitt Yancey, aka J Dilla, and June Seba, aka Nujabes, on what would have been their 50th birthdays. Now, both of these guys changed the rules of how hip-hop production was approached, and there's a whole generation of producers who have followed in their footsteps and continued their work, myself included, or at least I'm trying my best to do so. Even the collective that I'm a part of is named Champion Sound after Dilla's collab album with Madlib. Now, if you're a hip-hop fan of a certain age, then you more than likely know who these legends are. But for those not in the know, here's a brief summary. James DeWitt Yancey, aka J Dilla, was born on February 7, 1974, in Detroit, Michigan, and was a songwriter, rapper, drummer, and most notably, a producer that specialized in the hip-hop genre. He emerged during the mid-1990s underground hip-hop scene in Detroit as a member of the hip-hop group Slum Village, and was also a member of the Soulquarians, a music collective active during the late 1990s and early 2000s, with other notable artists such as drummer Questlove of hip-hop band The Roots, neo-soul R&B singers Erykah Badu and Bilal, rappers Talib Kweli and Common, and producer and rapper Q-Tip of A Tribe Called Quest, among several others as well. He was also a member of the producer collective, the Ummah, along with Q-Tip and Ali Shaheed Muhammad, both of A Tribe Called Quest, respectively. He was known for utilizing his MPC 3000, which he produced most of his music on, as an actual instrument as opposed to the sampler that it was. He did this by turning off the quantize or time correction feature on the MPC, which allowed him to record individual musical elements, from sample melodies to percussion arrangements, by hand as if he were playing them live, without everything being lined up perfectly to the grid or click track. This gave Dilla's hip-hop instrumentals much more of a human feel, with natural imperfections being a large characteristic of his production, akin to a freestyle jazz musician per se. He was a drummer, so he had an uncanny sense of where to place his kicks, snares, hi-hats, and other percussion to give it a real feeling that everything came from the same source musically, even though they were disparate samples from various sources that were brought together for a new composition. And no one had ever really heard production quite like this in hip-hop up to that point, and it made people rethink what a hip-hop composition truly could be. Some people didn't get it at first, deeming his production style as sloppy because certain elements would seem slightly off. But that's the keyword here. Seem. Because in actuality, nothing was ever out of place. Everything was in key and on beat. They were just recorded with a slightly different swing because Dilla wasn't time correcting everything to the 4/4 beat of the grid. Thus, you were experiencing the music in the same way that you would if you were to sit in the room with a bunch of musicians and listen to them play together. It was about how it felt, not how it sounded necessarily. And Dilla spent his entire career trying to educate other people about that. And eventually, after decades of reflecting and re-examining his work, a majority of the folks who didn't get it back then certainly do now. Most of them, at least. Dilla was known for sampling any and everything. He had a lot of passion and creativity and repurposed all of the various genres of music that he loved to create original works of art to help people to understand what was truly in his heart. Sadly, Dilla became severely ill in his early 30s and was diagnosed with both lupus and an undisclosed rare blood disease. Now, over the next 2 years, he would struggle to overcome his health issues, continuing to press forward and make music despite his increasing levels of daily discomfort. His final album, titled Donuts, was released on his 32nd birthday on the day of February 7th, 2006. Sadly, Dilla would pass away 3 days later on February 10th, 2006, to complications of his severe health issues. Now, his custom-made Moog synthesizer, made specifically for him by Dr. Robert Moog himself, along with his Akai MPC 3000, now sit in the Smithsonian Museum, where they rightfully belong. His legacy lives on through his mother, Maureen, aka Ma Dukes, as well as his 2 daughters and his younger brother, Illa J. And beyond that, we as the hip-hop community and the wider music community at large carry his music with us in our everyday lives, especially those of us who create music and art ourselves. So, rest in peace, J Dilla.
You know what I'm saying? What I feel when I make music is like energy, but it's not like, I'm not thinking about Premier when I make it. I'm not thinking about P-Rock. I love their work. I love Dre. I love.
You got any inspiration source? Just
it's like
old records.
What is old records? You know how I feel for the day. You know what I'm saying? It's like I don't understand like how the shit comes through me, or when I feel the urge to work. You know, it just happens. It's like I said, it's a move.
Jun Seba was born in Tokyo, Japan on February 7th, 1974, and as an adult would go on to become a unique hip-hop producer in his own right. His production style was its own beast entirely. Dilla's production was loose with varying amounts of samples that could range from being soulful to almost anything else you could think of, with the drums being recorded in a very loose and free-form manner, and really stood out as the strong point of his particular production. But the final product was always cleaned up nicely in the mixing and mastering process. Now, Nujabes, on the other hand, had a style on the flip side of that. His strong point was sample selection. He had an uncanny ear for certain melodies that sounded good for hip-hop beats, and the type of orchestral and jazz samples that he used were some of the most beautiful pieces of music that you could ever come across in your life. Just like Dilla brought a warm human feeling to his production, Nujabes brought an elevated elegance and sophistication to his hip-hop production, and to hip-hop production in general that had never been heard before. And honestly, with Nujabes, that's where the extent of his techniques start and stops. Now, what I mean by that is, the melodic arrangement, that was his main priority in the musical composition as far as the production was concerned. The drums, mixing and mastering, those were all secondary to him. Now, this is not a negative aspect at all in any sort of way, at least not in my eyes. It's just a part of his production that adds character to the overall sound. But with that said, it's just a plain fact that not much concern was placed on the percussion and mixing and mastering when it came to Nujabes' music. He was perfectly okay with the kicks hitting a bit too sharply, or the bass line having no compression where the volume would go from very subtle to extremely overpowering in any given moment, or even a snare or clap that would be barely audible in the mix throughout the entire song. Even the man himself basically clarified this. I remember a few years ago I was reading an article online where there was a rough translation from Japanese of Nujabes' interviews, and there was one particular paragraph where I'm not exactly 100% sure what it said, but well, I'm not sure what his exact words were or the translator's words were, but to paraphrase, it was something like, "The drums are rough and not the element to focus on. Focus on the melody and how it moves you emotionally." Now, As I said, this is just a paraphrase of what I remember, but he definitely did say something akin to this. I can specifically remember something very much along those lines, especially about the quality of the drum sounds and the mixing. Ironically, this achieved the same effect for Nujabes as Dilla's production did for him, which is prioritizing the feeling of the song over the sonics of the song. Sadly, Nujabes would be involved in a fatal car accident that claimed his life at the young age of 36 in 2010. But after his passing, just like with Dilla, his music garnered much appreciation worldwide due to the proliferation of the internet, and ultimately his work would be carried on by the next generation of producers such as Blazo, Nomak, Condor, and several others. Sen, thank you for showing the world that hip-hop could accept beautiful, lush samples into its production, and for opening the doors for an entirely new style for hip-hop. You will be forever missed, sir. Rest in peace, Nujabes.
Kind of. Like, even while he was still alive, people started digging his music through YouTube or, whatever outlet that they could get their hands on, because it was never distributed in the United States, like, officially, right? So, that said, I think musically, he was very different in that, he was a record store owner, so he had a massive collection of his own, or he had access to a lot of records. So he had like a very different taste than most hip-hop producers. I'm sure he studied your American like hip-hop and American catalog of soul, funk, and stuff like that, but he really dug like Brazilian music, or the bossa vibe, or like really abstract like jazz, from Japan, for example, that many American producers may not have sampled till that point.
Ultimately, both J Dilla and Nujabes would change the rules of hip-hop by utilizing personalized production techniques in tandem with their natural musical talents, and have come to be known as two of the most revered and renowned producers in hip-hop and in music in general. And like I said before, their work wasn't as well known during their lifetimes due to the fact that the internet was in its infancy during that period. But not long after Nujabes passed on, the internet vastly accelerated to being the main source of how the world now runs, and music lovers around the world can now research and access both producers' music at their own leisure, and spread the word to like-minded folks in no time at all. It's unfortunate that they didn't receive their much-deserved recognition until after their deaths, but as the saying goes, better late than never. This is why you hear so many people in music and in the creative arts in general use the phrase, give them their flowers while they can still smell them, which is to say, let the creative forces in the world know that their contribution to our lives by sharing a part of themselves with us through their own artistic expression is very much appreciated, whether they be artists, musicians, producers, writers, directors, actors, what have you. Something that I see a lot of people seem to have wondered about over the years is if Dilla and Nujabes were aware of one another's work. Now, there's no solid evidence one way or another, but I would assume that they did. Think about it. Dilla toured all over the world. He definitely hit up Japan a few times when doing international shows. I find it hard to believe that he wasn't aware of Nujabes or his work in some shape or form. And on the other side of that, Nujabes likely at least knew of Dilla's existence. And I couldn't find it currently, but 2 or 3 years ago, someone posted a picture in a forum somewhere online of the inside of Guinness Records, the record store that Nujabes used to own in Tokyo, and you could see one of Dilla's vinyl records displayed on the front shelves. Now, I can't remember which album it was exactly. It was either Donuts or Welcome to Detroit, but I have a feeling it was the latter for some reason. Now, I don't know about other people, but personally, I always wondered what a collab album between these two would sound like. They both have very different yet very similar styles, if that makes sense. I think that it would just be an amazingly eclectic mix of influences. They both sample jazz, soul, and Brazilian music, amongst other genres in their own individual productions. So I'm pretty sure that it would sound great. Listen to these two short snippets of this Dilla track from Donuts and this Nujabes track from Model Soul, and tell me you don't hear some kind of similarities in the production styles of both compositions. See, the Dilla track sounds like the closest thing he has ever produced to sounding like a Nujabes production, so I assume the same could be applied vice versa. And that's all for today, folks. So, to everyone tuning in, I ask, are you a Nujabes fan or a Dilla fan? Or are you a fan of them both? Who do you think is the superior producer? Or do you think they're both equal? And whose music do you think holds up better to the test of time? What do you all think a collab album from them would sound like? If you feel like sharing, please feel free to leave a comment below and let me know. I'd like to know. I really would. Thank you all for your time. I sincerely appreciate it. And to end this video, I again would like to wish a very happy belated 50th birthday to both of these legends, J Dilla and Nujabes. And may you both rest in peace and rest in beats. Until next time, everyone, be safe and take care of yourselves and each other.
Come on. Where you at? Sam. Yo, Sam. Too far in love. Where you at, y'all? With those things you do. What? Don't sell. Yo, Sam. Too far in love. Where you at, y'all? Come on. With those things you do. Now walk with us, y'all. By TV. Where you at?
Ladies loving my music, it's like
Some sex shit.
Nigga turn the room of the mark
Like it's a kid. Around the corner to pick up the new shit. Nurses in the deck, no niggas can catch rap.
I'm the only brother gripping his mind
Like it's a show.
Nigga trying to grip up this mind
Like it's a hoe. Put down your mic. You tune the half low. You take it too seriously. Like it's a gamble.
this rap shit. I
Listen to classical.
in the studio, Lou as usual. Love it, my lyrical.
For bitches that you would know.
How it is, cause you wanna eat, wanna
Y'all niggas in love with the ass. What? Y'all niggas in love. Come on. For real. Over there.
Yeah, it's a good time to perspective. How does that track to your life and you're affected? Whenever you are, feel a blue, keep walking in within your fall. Yeah, it's funny how it is a good time to perspective. How does that track to your life and you're affected? Whenever you are, feel a blue, keep walking in within your fall. Whenever you are, like the move that you can't predict. Like a boat that you can't resist. I sing along a song that's also sensual. Bring us sick to make it all so sexual. Verbally, that is, make you love to